I have to introduce to you our guests tonight. Eva Grayson and Riikka Talvitie, please come and have seats. Thank you so much. Anyone is fine. Eva is a lecturer in sound art and sonic arts at the University of the Arts here in Helsinki, and also a doctoral researcher in Aalto University, where they focus on re-indigenizing and reflecting on Western art music practices through the creation and performance of tactile, materially-based music notations. Grayson regularly facilitates workshops and event series that promote new and creative ways for members of the local community to experience listening, sound, and well-being. And in addition, they also run a self-published quarterly dedicated to all expressions of sound in the arts. Very welcome, Eva. And Riikka Talvitie, her compositional work encompasses contemporary orchestral and chamber music, vocal writing, and a diverse range of stage-based and multimedia forms, often incorporating live electronics, radiophonics, and radio opera formats. In recent years, her practice has been increasingly shaped by collaborative and dialogic approaches, treating composing as a shared, socially situated process, and an orientation also reflected in her artistic research and teaching here at Sibelius Academy. And was awarded the State Prize for Music in Finland, and also recently awarded the International Prize for Artistic Research in Music based on her doctoral work. Thank you, Riikka, for joining us, and let's talk. Could we start just with where do you make art? Where does your art take place? What kind of spaces do you want your art to happen in? Maybe Eva, if you can.
Sure, I think actually, Riikka, you and I might have quite a bit of overlap because I was thinking about the river. And I think I tend to avoid black box and white cube spaces when possible. There are times, of course, when, for instance, the audience is asked to move in a way that they like, and I think in those kinds of contexts, maybe a kind of cleaner space or a kind of more staged spaces is what I like. But otherwise, then, forests. The piece that I'll be showing an example from was done in a planetarium last year, but then 3 years previous was actually done in an oil tank in Sweden. So I'm open to very many spaces. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I must admit, is this wrong?
I don't know.
No.
I must admit that actually I have never thought about my work through the word space. Yeah. So I somehow come from the contemporary music culture where we normally have concerts in the black boxes, and somehow I've tried to struggle out of that, but still lots of my works are somehow happening in that context.
Yeah.
And actually then I went through all the works I have done, and then I noticed that there is really I've constantly tried to bring the outside world into the black box. That's maybe more my direction of the work.
Yeah, really interesting. And you say that you're avoiding black boxes. Why does that happen? What leads you to that?
If I'm going to be honest, I think it's because I was very DIY trained. I studied as a composer, but as far as kind of electroacoustic composing, came from quite traditional chamber music practices, and then very quickly in my first degree started getting exposed. For instance, helping Hildegard Westerkamp run Sound Walks Vancouver. So this is a very strong link in the soundscape studies between Canada and Finland, and I think in that regard I kind of skipped over a lot of the technical aspects. So of course I do work with those things, but I think in a way the looking at materials, looking at spaces as very complicated kind of technologies in and of themselves, I think that's really informed why my practice is the way it is.
Riikka, what when you say you bring things into, can you tell us a bit about that? What kind of things have you brought into the practice?
Somehow, I actually did that already while I was studying. Somehow I was recording a lot, and somehow I tried to somehow mix acoustic instruments and live electronics. But more and more when I've been working with multimedia and with video, then I have been somehow tried to somehow to give meanings in a way, and somehow I feel sometimes that it's not enough with the tools that I have as a similarly trained contemporary music composer. So I have tried to somehow contrast things, and for me it's like bringing nature's sounds or actually whatever like happenings that have some sort of like which can somehow break the rules in the musical logic. Then they can work as a kind of starting point. And sometimes I'm quite curious myself at what happens and how to react to those phenomena.
Is there some of your, or quite a lot of your work, you say, you still take place in these kind of boxes? Do you feel like there's still a space for these kinds of spaces to perform, or would you prefer different kinds of spaces for your music to be performed in, perhaps?
Yeah, I prefer, but I when I went through the list of my works, I have tried many things and included like things like the choir moves around the big space or whatever, and sometimes for many reasons these things don't happen. That they are not like somehow it's easier to just leave this kind of elements out. It's easier to organize the concert without any moving or thinking about the space or even like it's like a productional thing in a way.
Logistical.
Yeah. And then or like in one piece of older piece, I wanted to have like radio channels in. First I wanted to have 3, and in Viitasaari Time of Music Festival, it was really difficult to find those channels in the church. so and the next performance was in Järvenpää Music Hall, and there were like the signals didn't came through, and I also wanted to have like Radio Helsinki playing at the same, so that they could be somehow joining, but then it turned out to be too complicated to organize, and then lately I've been quite tired to this that we are not like, no one is willing to have this sort of experimental things and to somehow try to find different like openings to these concert music spaces.
Because it takes too much energy to kind of do the work to make it happen. Is that?
I think so, and maybe everything is in the classical music world. Everything is really like busy. That you have like
tight deadlines.
Or you have it like earlier. You had like 3 rehearsals. Now you have 2, and then you need to do everything in that. So it's like there is not like willingness of these kind of things.
Eva, you said that you've kind of very consciously moved away from the black boxes. Do you think there is this place for black boxes in the world?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a firm believer that even though my practice might be, I would say, radically imaginative, I would hope at least, that I think that even the most conservative kinds of musical spaces and kinds of musical practices that they're quite important too. So I think it's maybe a spectrum, and where I place myself on it doesn't necessarily rule out other kinds of spaces and music. Yeah.
Great. Let's talk about space in a slightly different way, in terms of kind of what space does your music open up, maybe sonically or intellectually or socially. What is important for you that the music generates? What kind of spaces does the music generate?
This was a tough one. I was thinking about it because it really depends on the piece as well.
Yeah.
I think my range of pieces tend to be from very kind of layered cinematic, even though the spaces themselves might not always be so conventional, that the pieces themselves might be actually quite music, or sound-based music. But I think in that regard, then, as I was just mentioning beforehand, that, obviously Riikka and I, we, being pedagogues and being researchers and being artists as well, that the different kind of hopes for a work, in what space does it open up, I think it is really, really context dependent.
Yeah.
But I do think that a lot of it is about this kind of space of liminality. I think about that a lot with my work, and also the word emergence is really important for me, because I think a lot of this stuff, even though I might be facilitating in quite a conventional way or composing in quite a conventional way, that my expectations are very loose most of the time, and that I'm actually more interested in kind of the emergence or the co-creation of meaning, rather than actually trying to dictate what happens in the space when the piece is happening.
Yeah. Could you talk a bit about how do you do that?
That's a good question.
What kinds of things have you done?
Sorry?
What kinds of things have you done to kind of work towards that?
Well, I think, maybe the example I'll be giving the most during this talk is the one piece that I performed in Planetarium last October, but then 3 years previous, the whole basis of it was in Nonagin Festival in Sweden, which took place in an empty oil tank, and we had the piece. It was myself and my collaborator Francesco Fabris that we were commissioned to do this piece, and so the whole thing was built on field recordings that were done specifically in the tank. And I think in that regard, the live vocals I did in the space as well was really trying to activate the space, trying to activate the building as a material in and of itself.
As if it was an instrument that you were playing.
Yeah, kind of, and I think in that way it was an attempt to really bring people in a much more visceral way than might be happening with kind of an electroacoustic piece that I might be performing.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if that quite answered your question, but
it's really interesting.
Thank you.
How would you answer that question, Riikka? About what spaces does your music open up, or do you want your music to open up?
Somehow the collaboration is somehow when it opens up.
Yeah.
So if we think about the old model, that everything is in the composer's head, and then it's somehow not fully imagination, but it's somehow like it's brought to the discussion or negotiation in a way. So then it opens up many social things like motivation and some kind of some sort of discussions that you can't expect beforehand, and this kind of directions. But then also what is the kind of what are the aesthetical solutions that the collaborators have might be totally different than the listeners. Then it also somehow challenged the whole situation, that who is who in a way, and that's maybe the somehow the thing that I've been working most lately, that I want to confuse somehow that I'm not at the center in a project.
Right. Yeah. So when you think of collaboration, you think of kind of distributing the power in a sense through the ensemble or even through the whole event.
Yeah, and also the disciplines could be a little bit like modified. I've been working in a working groups where we somehow we say out that we can somehow do or like I can direct or I can write something or the dramaturg can somehow suggest something for the sound or composition. So it's like
more fluid roles within the team.
Yeah. Then it also makes the work like simultaneous, like compared that there is a text and then you compose it and then you perform it, and it's like everything is at the same time.
You spoke about collaborating as well. How does that work in your process?
Yeah, I think the collaboration process is, I'm often collaborating with people. It's a very rare time that I'm doing solo performances, although I do that, but I think that even in solo performance, I'm often thinking in terms of kind of negotiating with space, with material, with context. So I think in that regard, and also in my doctoral research, I'm very much looking at how every performance, every event is kind of an ecology of different actants and agents. So I think in that regard, collaboration is extremely important, and always thinking, I think maybe, this muddling of the hierarchies or the kind of conventional roles is quite important in the work. But then also in collaboration, I think I have a similar experience as well, that everybody's kind of doing a little bit of everything when they feel compelled to jump in, that it's not, this is your job and this is your expertise and this is my job and this is my expertise, that often those roles can be kind of negotiable and in an ongoing way.
You want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say something completely different, actually. like I remember one composition exercise what I did a long time ago, and it was really like creating with. I had material, maybe a kind of beep. That was the material, and the idea was that it goes like from left to right and from front to back, and it was a composition for that kind of. And so I really like tried to create a sound that comes to the front and comes to the back, and that was somehow like old logic. Really, like you are listening to the radio and stereo and these kind of things, and you create a kind of virtual thing. And if I think about the situation now, when we have like all the surrounding loudspeakers and millions of loudspeakers and like really like concrete possibilities of spacing things, then somehow so that sometimes I come back to this exercise as a kind of like imaginary virtual thing that I'm creating, that because otherwise it's sort of like messy like real space. If you understand this, that it's somehow it's like really like fascinating to still think that we are like somehow composing the listening thing. Yeah, and we don't have like all the possibilities in a way. And that's sort of like, that's something like completely different, because then it's like planning and thinking and creating and testing and it's kind of like really opposite way that everything is possible and everything is like present.
And if you think about your own educations, the kind of stuff that you're doing now, were you prepared for that, or was it difficult to come to where you are now, or what was that process like for you? If you want to start.
I went to University of British Columbia, which I would say is a very good traditional music program, and I had luckily one teacher who was a little bit like me, very generalist. I think maybe also because North Americans tend to push towards specialization a little bit more in the schooling system. But a lot of the professors were cool, but we don't know what to do about it. So I think in this way, I had a little bit of preparation, but it wasn't kind of in the formal curriculum way, but rather that this one, professor said, you need a camera, let's get you a camera. You want to do octophonic setup? Let's do octophonic setup. And I think in this very encouraging way, it really shaped my choice actually to move. I came to Finland to study in the Sound and New Media program in order to understand the tools better, in order to actually push away I use those skills quite readily now, and I feel like I'm integrating all of them, but I think I spent many years actually very much pushing away from this more conventional chamber music composition and concert halls. Yeah. Mm.
So there was someone who said, yes, you should try these things. And
I think that was quite lucky in a way, because I think then I had some experience doing things like moving image, doing things like sound walking, a little bit of installation work before I even came here to do my master's, and that's not, like I said, that wasn't part of the curriculum by any means. Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Yeah. How about you, Riikka? How was your experience?
Yeah, I was studying here at the Sibelius Academy, and I first studied oboe, but then I started to compose, and I was taking a lot of courses. When I was studying, and then the studio was upstairs in this building. At that time, the composition department and the music technology department, they were one, and so it was like we were able to use the rooms, and also many things were quite much freer, so that I remember that we were able to somehow experiment in the chamber music hall through the night and sleep in the sofa and all that. So if I think like there are like, even though many things are now more experimental in a way, there was something like more freedom at that time. So to test things and also to be interested in different disciplines and all that. So it was not that categorized. So, but then if I think about this question a little bit more more larger, so that this question of space or political space, to say. So the music research has tried, or people in the music research have tried to somehow ask the questions about that. What is the situation with the Western art music at this moment, and somehow in the really practical level, I feel that we composers are not really taking that question seriously, because it's like somehow the whole like system is based on this canonical thing that we are repeating, and that's why I'm sort of thinking that maybe it's good to ask these questions inside the field in a way, and not jump out and to do something else. And so that's why I'm sort of like doing these compositions and asking with my pieces or project or whatever that could it change, or could the practices be more equal, or many things actually. Yeah.
It's really interesting. So not wanting to step out and kind of shout from the outside things should change, but to be inside and try and see if you can change something from the inside. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it?
How do you feel?
I have a lot to say about this. No, I think it's quite interesting because in a way, like I said, I spent kind of a few years doing, sound installation. I'm a sound artist. I'm not a composer anymore. This kind of thing. But now I've been teaching, lecturing here for 9 years in sound art and sonic arts, and even though I might not really, be a composer anymore, that I have a lot of the Sibelius students coming into the classes who say, "I'm tired of playing the harp. And now what?" And actually watching them as they go back into their practices now with additional thoughts like, what could it mean if we talk about sound-based music? What could it mean if we are working in site-specific contexts? These kinds of things, and I think actually that this dialogue is happening. It's just that we feel a little bit siloed, and I do see, luckily I think because also I'm in the open campus that I teach to all the students, that I'm seeing that there is actually a lot of desire towards, and that there is. I'm just thinking the last article I wrote with Docmo's student Lena Yulin, church musician, as well, that there is clearly this dialogue happening. It's just that maybe we don't feel like it's strong enough because we see from the inside just how siloed these things can be.
But do you think that you are somehow inside the field still?
Definitely with my doctoral work, it is focused on doing things from the inside and this idea of self-reflection as a composer, as a music maker. How are we perpetuating or how are we teaching certain things in Western art music? So yes, very much so.
And how much of that is kind of the noise in our heads of what it should be as opposed to what it is out there? Do you want to reflect on that? Like, are those boundaries in our own thinking that this is what a composer is, this is what a performer is, or this is what I can and cannot do? Or is it kind of externally coming from you somewhere saying, no, you shouldn't be doing this or you should be doing that? How would you think about
I have
that?
no idea. I think in a way, this article that Lena and I worked with, she talks a little bit about this, anonymous authority. We don't play Beethoven this way. But I think one of the fortunate things is that I feel like I've escaped that kind of situation for myself at least, and working in predominantly kind of sound art or experimental music, that we don't have these kind of long-standing traditions. I would say there are best practices in certain ways, but it's not. But we don't play.
I'm not saying you can't do that.
It's my own work, so you can't play Eva Grayson that way. Says who? What about you, Riikka?
Yeah, there are some sort of like boundaries still. Like if an orchestra is rehearsing your piece and then you walk there, then it is always like that. How do composer want this to be? The questions are asked in that way, and sometimes it's nice to just say that. Show me, or let's listen, or this kind of like answers, but they are not like they are not accepted in a way that you should know whether it is like on the string or off the string or whatever articulation, and it's not like it's not like non-hierarchical searching for a good solution in a way.
Because in that situation, they're expecting you are the expert and you should say.
Yeah.
Maybe another difficult question. How does your art transform or make space? And that can be quite broadly interpreted, but you have some ideas about that?
Yeah, I think maybe because of just my own, I have a really strong background with kind of critical listening practices, so I've been very, very strongly influenced by, Pauline Oliveros, Hildegard Westerkamp, kind of these West Coast, soundscape, thinking then about how how we transform when we attune to things and when we slow down. I think that actually Simone and Christina's piece was a really good example of this kind of making a lot of space for a kind of music that requires patience. And I think actually that building things through time that takes patience is a very important way of kind of transforming space and building space. So I think attunement's a really, really a large part of that.
I have been trying to somehow script some concerts that I compose or the events in a way, so that some sort of contemporary theater way or performance art way, so that that the how to say it, so that they are not that the space is not just a kind of pieces after each other, but scripting these things so that I'm sort of trying to somehow create some sort of changing element, or how to say it. And it's not something that it's not something that everybody needs to listen to that way, but it's somehow giving to the audience some sort of ideas that we could go to these directions, and then it's for myself some sort of tool to think about, but not in a kind of installation situation, but more in a concert format.
Yeah. So shaping the flow of the concert to have a kind of message. Would you say it like that?
Yeah, I was actually thinking beforehand, because it's maybe not the message, but it's more a question that trying to somehow give questions to think. Yeah.
Really interesting.
So that it's not, the time is not 10 minutes. 10 minutes. It's not pieces, but it's a kind of more
sequence of events.
Yeah.
You have bought a video clip or some video clips of some of your work. Do you want us to watch that and maybe we can talk about something that's going on there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let us look at this winter.
Thank you. Could you tell us about this?
I gave me a task to record and record sound and video for 1 year, like from August to 2022 to 2023, and I did it like I gave a task to do it when the sun rises, which was a bit like stupid thing, but I did, and I managed to do it something like twice a month, so 24 times, and then I had this is Mätäjoki from Tali, and I had 4 recording places where I did it something like 2 minutes at time, and when I started this, I didn't have any plan actually. I knew that I will use it in one piece with recorder quartet, but then I didn't know how or what to do, and also I didn't know actually what will happen with the sound during the year, so it was somehow also a testing that how will the river change during the year. And this winter was quite rainy, and actually so these floods were somehow coming several times, like if we compare to this year, so it has been much calmer, and I have used this material with several works then.
So you incorporate it in the composition, or like how do you do that?
With this recorder quartet, I did it so that it was some sort of like circle of the year, the idea, and so I had like short movements which were like representing like all the seasons, and also so that there was some places when they were playing with the river, and some places that where the river was somehow hearable and such. But then the idea was that the players were moving around the circle when they were playing and changing the position and all that.
And could you reflect for a moment about space in this work that you have done? Like why that river, and what does it represent to you?
It's near my home, and when I pass the river, I really recognize the sound while I've been there so many times. So I somehow I used these kind of like repetitive recording and also video in this case as a kind of like tool to change me or my working practice, or so that I didn't know before what I was doing, and then I was somehow thinking about materials that could fit, and also I had to be patient for 1 year to somehow find out how this goes. Yeah.
And I know that you have in other works also used nature and growth and videos, and I've seen some other things that you've done in that way. Is that an important theme for you? Is it a kind of message, or is it an interest, or is it how would you describe that relationship?
Yeah, I think it's this question like what is sound art and what is music, or all these disciplines. It's quite complicated, because somehow in music, composing music, somehow the human interacts or somehow, or compose, or so I have been trying to somehow find out what happens in that limit that you have some sort of material and then you start to form it and then you create your fantasy form and you somehow ruin the nature's own time and speed. So I think it is not that easy actually to combine because there is totally different logic in many ways. And last year I was staying 2 months in Saarenkartano and I wanted to record trees and they don't give any sound. so then I just did it and I found out that like if 2 trees are somehow hanging with each other, there might be a sound. but this kind of like city situation where the parks are really clean, then all the sounds are gone. Yeah. So it's like so it's it's a bit like I don't know how is it possible to take that step with these 2 worlds, but somehow maybe like being there and somehow trying to find out solutions. It's already like changing the culture.
Very interesting. Thank you. Do you want to share a video from your work?
Sure. Maybe I.
There were more from you also.
Did you
want to
It
show
would
another?
be maybe easier to do it.
Okay, you want to share one more?
Yeah. This is not mine, it's Alban Berg's Regen. This was a kind of I tried to bring some kind of like abstract expressionistic piece from the original context and then bring it back to the concert hall. And then the pianist was playing with. Yeah, but it was not that easy to do it. We had a pre-recorded tape of from the pianist, so that it was like
In the ears.
in the ears. And then we were like following the weather forecast, and so we were there near the sea. And then when the rain came quite heavily, then we took it 3 times. And then I went home, and I was like, "What is in there?" A little bit like broken, windy sound, and But the idea was somehow to play a little bit with the expression that if it's a kind of like we are looking to nature far, or if we are in.
I was thinking of the piece that we just heard, and the title of the sensitivity to leaves, kind of the fragility of the sound in this kind of noisy environment, and what we saw there was kind of a flipping of that. You have this kind of opera singer, powerful voice, and then it just disappears because the wind is
masking effect in a way. Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you.
And there's one more.
Let's watch Ava's video from Ava. Yeah.
So maybe I'll preface this just because this piece has been sensitive to space, that it's been kind of redone. And this, actually, Hamid, when I'm ready, I'll get you to go to the last slide because there's a whole bunch of photos.
So
But-
we don't go through that.
No, because I'm realizing now they're doctoral research related. Maybe that's another conversation. But the last one is the video. And this is actually our kind of online cut. So we have studio version, the first version that was performed actually in the oil tank where it was recorded. We can talk about that a little bit if you want. Then there's the studio version, the online AV version, which is this one, and then the one that we did in the planetarium last year in Sweden. So yes, go for it. Thank you. The flashing light warning, just So that's an excerpt from, I think the studio version was about 12 minutes long, and the original performance was 36, and our last time was 30 as well. So, yeah.
What are we seeing?
Yeah, good question. So the original, basically, yeah, we spent a week gathering both audio and visual materials in there, and then you'll see here, this is quite this section of it is visually quite digital looking. We were playing with this idea. Yeah, so the festival, the theme was oil, and this piece was all based on that. So we were kind of working with moving visually from this very organic material, so found materials around there. It's like wasp's nest. We'd scrape some old oil off the walls, and then Francesco, he's the visual guy. I don't do visuals, but retexturizing them digitally. So this is, like I said, very digital part of it. But then there's also some really like contrasting shots of wasps' nests and moss and things like that. So yeah, but very, very black and white. Italian post-minimalist, very aesthetic. And this was actually, the visuals were projected onto a 9-sided screen that took up the entire ceiling of the oil tank. So the audience, and it was quite an interesting piece in a way that all of our material was sourced from the oil tank and then playing it back into the oil tank with this 23-second reverb. It was really quite there were a lot of choices to be made as far as how do we handle it carefully. Yeah.
So it can become overwhelming very quickly.
Absolutely, yes.
You talk about yourself as a facilitator rather than a composer, maybe. How did that manifest in this?
I think I was much more of a composer and sound artist in this context. I think most of the work that I'm doing now, like I said, I'm shifting away from teaching, researching, and freelancing doesn't all fit into one life, so I can kind of only do two at the same time. And I've been a little bit light on the performance, but like I said before, even with this idea of facilitating, I'm just often really going and gathering materials and seeing what emerges from it. And so in a way, I'm almost thinking, and you mentioned something, it reminded me a little bit of kind of like almost externalizing things that I feel like I'm just arranging. It's not coming from inside. I'm finding the materials and then figuring out what's idiomatic for them, or how do they work together in an appropriate way, and then trying to actually, facilitate a situation rather than really trying to force control over it. I think this might be a little bit, like I said, a little bit more on the traditional side of composing, just because of the context of the festival. Yeah.
And the festival had the oil tanker already ready, so it was kind of a found object in a way for you.
Yeah, we did a 1-week residency, and we spent the entire week just building up a library of sounds, basically. So we had that horn sound. There was actually a flagpole I'd found outside, and I thought, the end of this is actually didgeridoo-sized. Okay, let's see what it's at in the space. And all of the visual materials. So it was basically, we just gathered. We had some specialized equipment, so we brought some contact mics and a gigaphone and things like that. But then the whole piece came from what do we have from this library that we've built up over the week.
Can I ask both of you, because we're talking reflecting the political, these works that you've shown us, does the title political mean something to you in the context of these works? Do you think of them as political, or in what ways maybe do you think of them as political? How would you?
I think all work is inherently political, whether it's implicit or explicit. And I think, of course, this was the context of the whole festival was oil, and so the piece was called Petra, and it's a commentary about how are we using, fossil fuels. And I think in that regard, you can't get away from political aspects in that. But yeah, I do think that for myself, at least, I would say that all of the work is implicitly. I don't tend to be quite explicit about politics, but I do think it's always there. Yeah.
Yeah. So would you think that this piece was more explicit than what you would?
I would say so, just because, like I said, it was a commission. So if it was something that I was doing on of my own accord, then I might bring my own personal politics into it of who I am as a European descendant settler, genderqueer person, etc. But yeah, this was a bit more explicit than usual for sure.
How do you think?
Yeah, I think in the same way that or what we do is somehow political. Yeah, to be like, I have tested once to be like political, and it was one piece in Viitasaari that they asked people to consciously think about political things nowadays, and then I chose one tree planting project in northern Syria, and then I wrote a piece about that, and then I have continued the process because I couldn't use the tape because it was a Finnish broadcasting company and they don't give it for free for use. So I somehow brought it to my webpage, and of course it's now spread there for other use. But then I have been like writing about this, that actually if we ask to be political, and then it's actually quite weird that we can't, and our like structures in our field are somehow not promoting political acts. So I'm sort of like talking about it, and now I have promised to do one work about it to Tampere Biennale in the exhibition, and I'm sort of trying to modify the piece for something, and I for that political act I'm sort of thinking that if I sort of continuously think about it and continue it, even though it is not possible, then it somehow maybe brings those things up. That what are somehow what is kind of it is so like abstract works in a that we are somehow owning and copyrighting that it's with that it's really difficult to somehow be somehow openly political in a way.
In a moment, I'm going to ask from the audience if you have questions, and maybe you can already start thinking about what would you like to ask from these amazing creators. What would you hope would happen through your music? What would be like, if the most amazing thing could happen, what would you love your music to do in society?
I think the aim of my teaching, my research, and pretty much everything I make again is about this idea of opening up spaces for listening. And I don't mean listening as in just we come together and we hear some music and then we go home and we don't think about it anymore. But this idea of kind of sensitizing ourselves, attuning, also diversifying. Like what kinds of things do we listen to on a day-to-day basis, and just practicing. Maybe it is about practice. Yeah.
Leading to people listening better to each other, or is that kind of part of the?
Yeah, I think, the longer I'm teaching about, for instance, when we ran that course a few years ago called, I think it was Listening Aesthetics and Ethics. This idea of, I think the longer I talk about listening, the more I end up talking about attunement. So, for instance, if I'm going to do a field recording project, then when I go out into the field, what does it mean to be attuned to the field? Is it just the environment? Is it the inanimate things? Is it the people around? Is it my social relationship to the community in it? This kind of thing, and this kind of just awareness and attunement, I think, are kind of the end goal. Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah, I haven't been really like lately thinking about that to somehow that the music and the works could somehow influence or to do something in the world. Of course, they maybe can, but somehow I have been more focusing on the processes and the everyday action or pedagogical things and also like collaborations with like different, not just like professionals, but all kinds of situations, so that they somehow some sort of local action or how to say, so that it's like near and that if all the people are somehow motivated and interested about the sound and working, then it's somehow maybe brings some new